I actually have the funniest fucking story that I just found out. I was on a dating app. I'm no longer on the dating apps because that's
Really? I didn't know
beneath
that.
me.
You
It's
stopped?
beneath me.
I mean, it is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did stop because yeah, I'm just like, I can't. I'm so sorry. Like, it was not great. It was just not
It
like nothing positive resulted from the app.
yeah.
So I definitely did give it a chance.
Yeah,
So
that's
good on me
fair.
for doing that, but it's just not happening. So I'm like, okay, I accept it.
Mhm.
But while I was on the apps, there was this one man that I matched with, and he was sending me copy paste messages. It was just like a super
Like, he just sent
long.
that to everyone?
Yes,
Wait,
like
was
it was
this
like
a
all the
while ago?
emojis.
Or was this recent?
Yeah.
I feel like I remember
Well,
seeing the messages. I think you should
yes.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah.
did. I
Yeah.
did. And I'll probably take a screenshot and share it in the chat or whatever. But yeah, basically very clear that it was a copy and pasted because it's
Yeah.
like the first thing that he says in response, it was like a questionnaire. And then
Yeah. It's like he's just sending this to everyone and seeing who's
yes,
responding.
he's like, "Who do you
So
fill out these
weird.
criteria?" And then and like some of the questions were just super weird. Like he was literally like, "Do you like to financially spoil your man?"
Oh,
And
yeah. No.
it's like,
That is such a weird way to say that also.
yeah. He's like, "Do you like spending money on your man?" And that's a really weird question off the bat.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not asking you to spend money. He's like, "Do you
Right.
like giving gifts and like spoiling your man?" And then he starts saying like stuff like he gift giving like 3-4 times a year at least.
Oh, that's right.
I'm
Yeah.
just it was
Yeah,
just
it's like,
like
"What? What? Are you good?"
like, are you
yeah, like, are
homeless?
you exactly.
Like, I'm getting
You
concerned.
need, like, a quarterly, like, payment?
Gifts?
That's what it sounded
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. So he was like, yeah, it was just like getting really weird. So I'm like, and then he sent me another questionnaire, and then I didn't answer like 2 of the questions because they were really weird.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You didn't answer all the questions." And I'm like, "You sent me a
My
questionnaire that's copy and pasted. I
god.
shouldn't even be responding to this."
Also, yeah,
Like,
like, what have we lost the art of conversation that badly that we're now sending forms to fill out? Just ask
literally.
regular questions.
Yes, like that's just so weird, and it's like you're just trying to like use this as a speed dating thing. And so yeah, I definitely unmatched him after he sent me like another copy and
Yeah.
pasted thing. And so whatever, I just kept on pushing. Today I get a text from my friend.
Oh my god.
I would have to
Wait, shut up. This is him? Ebezi?
yes, yes,
Stop. Stop.
yes.
What is he, like a local rapper?
Do posted.
When I cheated, you stayed. When I had a baby on you, you stayed. When I left you after you gained all that weight, you went and got a BBL just for me. When you got that PPP loan, you gave me 20K. When you caught me and your sister, you stayed. When I got married and told you that we could still date in private, you agreed. Is this him? Me. What is this? What does the
It's a
rest of the
poem.
post
It's
say?
a love poem. Oh,
Shut the
okay.
fuck
Oh,
up. Why did he block her?
okay.
So he didn't
Because
block her face. Someone else did that for her? Or did he
no,
block
he
her
did.
face?
Thank God. Yes, he did. Honestly, he should. Oh my God. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh my God, my God. Okay. He says, okay. So then he says, "Baby, the day that you told me that a piece of a man was better than having no man at all, I knew you were the one for me. You're the strongest woman I know. No matter what I put you through, you take it to the chin and keep it moving. You've taught me the definition of what true love is. You're the true definition of a queen. You're my Coretta. You're my Vanessa Bryant. I love the way you love me. Not I love you. I love
My god.
the way you love
This
me."
is the man that sent you the questionnaire? Yeah,
Yes.
this is crazy.
So
This is truly crazy. This is
part
real?
2 is that yes, supposedly. I don't know. He's also like on a TV show right now. And he goes, "Oh, he came home early to find his girl in his house with another man."
Oh, okay. Good job, girl.
And so that's why, like, on
I see.
the tweet is like, "Serves you fucking right," after saying
Yeah.
all this shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But honestly, this all could be for promo because he is trying to do a show.
Yeah, the whole
or
Ring
whatever.
camera thing seems pretty staged.
Yeah, he's like trying to
But
do a
I do
show. Oh my,
wonder
he's
how
so
old that Instagram post is because that's crazy. If any of that is real, that's absolutely crazy. Praying for
December
her.
21st, 2024.
Oh, so that's probably real, but then the Ring camera thing is probably fake.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
crazy.
So basically I unmatched the love of my life.
This list is literally exactly what you should not do for a man. The whole list.
Like I when I cheated, you stayed. That's when you first should have left.
This is
When
so
I had a baby on you,
and then he calls her fat, basically.
literally. And I when I left you, when I left
And also
so wait,
not him
no, 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 no,
including the
no,
PPP loan.
no, 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 no. We can't even get there. We can't even get
The
there because it's
fraud.
like you, right? You literally cheated on me, and you're telling people that you did fraud. Okay, when I cheated on you, you stayed. When I had a baby on you, you stayed. I left you after you gained all of that weight. You went and got a BBL just for me.
This is crazy. This is crazy. This is like obviously I ultimately am like I feel so bad for this woman, what the fuck? But also I'm like, girls, ladies, this is exactly what we need to collectively agree to not put up with this. This is insane. If I can't even put up with like smells in my kitchen, like we cannot be doing
Just
this.
the first two already had me.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
ready to
no.
close. I don't even need to read
The
anymore. The first
first.
one, literally, the first one is already like absolutely not. Like I would have been
No.
gone. I'm not. I am not one of those, baby. I am
I'm
not one of those.
that
I am
is
not your
so
Coretta.
crazy too that he was giving a fucking questionnaire. Oh my god.
And
Yeah,
then like
do not get back on
you're
the
literally,
apps.
yeah. It's crazy. It's
Oh
actually
my
insane. Like
god.
most of the men that I've
What?
ever encountered on the apps are literally like trying to find a vacation bae,
Trash. Yeah.
trying to find a bae for when they're in town because they have a house here, so they want to find a bae when they're in town, and for you just them for you to entertain them while they're wherever the fuck they are. Um,
This is why I'm so
Trash.
mean to men when I'm drunk. Like, this is why I'm so mean to men. I just feel like someone needs to level the playing field.
Seriously, like men do get away with a lot. Like they get away with so much, and they like a lot of the time men don't have to answer
Exactly, to
like any
anyone.
questions. And women, it's like it's never the case. So it's like, yeah, I'm so sorry, man. It's your turn to fucking get slapped
That is
in
so
the face.
crazy.
So crazy. So yeah, I don't
Don't
even
yeah,
honestly I
don't
don't
get
even think
back
I
on the
can date
apps.
in Miami. I think
No,
I'm just like,
no.
okay.
I don't think you
Yeah.
should. I really don't think you should.
Yeah. I'm still like
That's
very
wild.
yeah. I'm just like my legs are so closed. Like my legs are sealed shut. Like they're
Yeah,
zipped shut. Like they are
yeah.
locked shut. Like they are not opening.
It's
Like
not
they're
open for
like no.
business. Even if
No,
you
it is closed.
wanted to, I think your body would literally be like, "No."
It's just so funny because every time I'm like a little bit interested in a man, he just does something that just is like, and this is why my
Yeah,
legs are clamped
yeah.
shut.
And thank God you're
This is
reading
exactly
those
why.
red flags because a lot of people don't. That's the thing. Like, it's important to notice when you're like, "Oh, I'm kind of interested in this guy," and then they do something weird. It's important to be like, "Actually, why did they do that?" Versus being like, "Oh, you
Yes,
should
so many
see,
people
it's
are
okay."
passive. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, if I actually like you, I'm going to like you. And if I don't, if you do something to make me not like you, then it's not going to work out. Like,
Yeah,
I have high standards because I like, oh, what do you bring to the table? Bitch, I have a whole table by my motherfucking self. I don't
yeah,
need your table, bitch.
yeah.
I would like for you to set up, your table beside my table. We could merge tables.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? But like, if your table a little weak, wobbly, get that bullshit out. Get
If
that
it's a wall
bullshit on. If you got a wobbly ass table, the table shaking.
and we're gonna test it, we're gonna, like,
Literally,
jump
bitch, I'm a bah! Literally.
if your table can't withstand this,
Literally. If your
that's
table
it.
can't take the like, babe, if it can't take a little, you know what I'm saying? Dragaroo, it's not gonna work. What
Yeah.
the hell is this? Oh my god, why did this is the most Miami shit ever. Why did I just get a fucking message? I don't even know where this is from. Black Friday starts now. Full body laser, microneedling, facelift, and body transfer. Weight loss.
This
Just
is so
$1,500.
Miami.
Like, hello to you
That
too.
is so
Like, do you want a
Miami.
BBL for $1,500? Is that what you
They,
just sent
like,
me?
include that Instagram post. They're like, "Did you just lose a lot of weight? Or did you just gain a lot of weight? Do you need a BBL to impress your man?"
Yo, bro, that's how it is in Miami. They're like, oh, you gain weight. Just go get lipo right now. Like, just go get lipo. Like, real quick. They're like, you didn't get lipo? What the fuck?
I
Bro, you can't walk around
cannot.
like that. Just go get a
I
BBL.
like Miami as a place. I always have loved visiting, but the more I hear about it from the people who live there permanently, I'm like, "Oh my god, I think I would be, like, mentally ill, like, incredibly mentally ill if I lived in Miami."
It's insane. No, it's really hard to do it. I have thick skin, so I don't really give a fuck. Like, I remember, like, when I used to
Yeah.
live here and I was skinny as a pencil, and one guy said to me, he was like, all you need is a BBL, because I was super skinny.
Oh
And
god.
I was like, baby, I don't have
Fuck
body dysmorphia.
off. Yeah. What
I
the
actually like my
fuck?
body. And it was so funny to me because after that, like, this man was only with the skinniest, smallest, skinty girls. I'm like, please. So that really means you just wanted me, like, back the fuck up.
Yeah.
Doing too much. Back the fuck up. It would never happen, Papa. Sorry to have but sorry,
Just
because
say
why the fuck are you trying to
sorry.
tell women what to
That's
do with their bodies?
crazy. Meanwhile,
Like,
he probably
no.
needed, like, fucking
Go to the gym,
liposuction,
babe.
fucking
Exactly.
a
You need
wardrobe overhaul, fucking
exactly.
facials every day. Like, shut up. Shut up.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I remember that, and, like, now somebody was like, "Oh, yeah, you should just get a BBL." I'll just be like, "Okay."
That's crazy. I also thought that BBLs were kinda, like, dying. Are people still getting them a lot in
People are
Miami?
100% getting them. They're just getting skinny BBLs. Like, they just want,
Uh,
like, an ass. So, like, you can get the most natural, like, I've seen, like, so many white girls come to Miami and they get the most natural looking BBL. Like, this one girl, she got a BBL. You would never in your life be like, "Oh, you got a BBL."
damn.
Like, her little, she didn't even got a butt after that shit, but her butt, like, because when you see her thing and she's like, "Oh, I got a BBL," you're like, "Excuse
At
me?"
that point,
You're like,
I'm
"Where?"
both, "Oh, well, that's good that they're more natural these days,"
No,
but I'm
that's
also like, "What's the point then? Just fucking."
because they
Yeah.
want to ask, they don't want to build it. Skinny BBLs are really it right now. Like, you get small, natural looking BBLs. Some of the BBLs be looking good as fuck. Like, this person is trans and that motherfucker got a BBL. I was like, no, that
That's good.
shit looked good as fuck. Like, it looked like, bitch, you
That's
been in
good
the
then, because I
gym.
remember, like, 10 years ago, I think the Kardashians got all theirs, like, dissolved or whatever, but remember 10 years ago,
Yes.
it was literally like, it was
No,
so insane
literally.
looking. It was so insane looking
Yes.
that I was
Exactly.
always like, "What?" Like, that is not the natural shape of an ass, like, ever. In any species.
People, it's just
Humans,
like,
animals. No one has a butt
like,
like
literally,
that.
like, why? And it's just like, yeah, people just jump on trends, and that's my thing. I'm like, you're gonna fucking permanently change your body based off of a trend.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not even thinking about the health repercussions. Like, this is your body. You have to
Yeah.
live with this body for the rest of your life. Going under anesthesia and cutting and
Yeah.
sewing different parts that don't go together into wherever the fuck, and, like, just having people injected with all types of chemicals and shit. You have no idea what the fuck they're doing, what
It's
they're
so
credentialed in. A lot of
never
people go
worth
to, like, these
it.
random doctors that are not even
Yeah.
credentialed, and to literally go be in pain for, like, several weeks, like, severe pain for several weeks. Like, when I first, like, heard of the BBL process, I'm like, this is so, like, dystopian. Like,
Yeah.
you
It
have to, like,
is.
go through the pain. People are like, I felt like I was dying. Like, you have to feel like you're dying to, like, feel secure. I didn't, and
Yeah.
then not even secure, because the insecurity
Confident.
has
Yeah.
just begun.
True, that's true. It doesn't
It's
even make you feel
just begun.
confident. Yeah, because then it's like a slippery slope from there.
You consume so much that you're being led to believe that every single part of you should change, and you're injecting and putting stuff into your body that you don't even know what it is. There's not even, like, long-term studies. This shit is
Oh,
brand
yeah.
new.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're like, "Put it in my face." "Sure, sure, put it in my face."
Yep.
And then you're like,
Oh, the filler? Okay, that's a big
yeah.
one. I listened to this whole podcast a while ago about filler and the fact that no one talks about how, like, It is permanent. Like, when
Yes,
they
it don't
say they're
dissolve.
getting it dissolved, that is such a risky process because there's no way to target the filler separate from your own fucking collagen. So when you dissolve it, you're risking, like,
Dissolving your
your
own
fucking face being
literally.
dissolved.
And you're just and it's never really gonna go
It
away
never
100%.
goes
And
away.
it could migrate to different places, so and,
Yeah,
like,
it just keeps migrating. It's so I mean, yeah, I will
it's
say
just like
us doing, like, the video content for the first time, that's something I noticed in my own head. I was, like, watching myself speak, and I remember I even texted you. I was like, "I hate seeing myself speak just because 'cause I'm not used to it." I was like, "I feel like I look like I'm on drugs." But you know what it is? I never wanna get, like, Botox or filler, whatever, respect to people who do, I'm not judging you, but I never wanna get it because my face is so expressive, and that's, like, a huge part of me, and that's why it is kinda hard to see myself speak because these days, when you see people speak, even just regular ass influencers on TikTok, they're all like this, and they laugh.
that's so true.
It's I like this.
That is
Ha ha ha
100%
ha.
true.
Ha ha
The
ha.
scariest thing to me is, like, you do that shit and then you get filler blindness and you're like, "Let's keep going."
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? I saw this one video of this woman, I think she lived in LA, and she was an injector herself, and her face was scary,
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah,
know?
because since it doesn't go away, that's how you get pillow face, because it migrates, and then
Yes.
you feel like you have to get more, then that filler is still there, so you're just building on top of filler on top of filler.
It literally looked like she had changed her entire face structure
Yeah.
to the point where it was just her cheeks
It's
were literally, like,
gnarly.
just out.
It
And in the video, she's like, "Let me go inject myself some more because I'm gonna make myself happy because I had a bad day, so I'm gonna go
oh, it's
inject myself
sad.
more." And it's just like,
It's like, "Oh
my
god." It's
gosh, like,
sad.
it's very scary, like, what has happened to humanity and, like, the level of vanity,
Yeah.
the shit that people are willing to do to maintain beauty.
Do you
Some people, filler has changed their life because it's completely changed their looks. Like, some people have gone from
Sh yeah,
completely
sure, yeah. It does change
unconventionally
people's lives.
attractive to conventionally attractive
Mm.
in a second.
For,
And
like,
so I've
society
definitely
standards,
seen
yeah, and it does
yes.
pretty privilege is a thing, yeah.
Pretty privilege is such a thing, especially in a city like Miami. So like most people here are filled with something. Like even if the people that you
Yeah.
think like there's no way to see her in the gym every day, like she got a BBL years ago. She had lipo a long time ago.
Mhm.
She just had another lipo the other day. Like people are always under the table here. And so it's like it's
Yeah.
for me as somebody who's like not willing to touch any part of their body. It's so funny because like I'll talk to my who's kind of in like that circle, and she's like, "Yeah, if my body did not look good, I would 100% go under the knife, like
Damn.
no doubt about it, no ifs, ands, or buts." You and it's funny
There's, like,
because like
literal benefits, yeah, it's crazy.
a lot of women do think like that in terms of I had to be of a certain caliber. Like I want men to like see me and know I'm a quality woman or this is like what I represent. So I
Yeah.
need to look the part, and having that body is looking the part.
It's just so, like, realistic, and it's like, we are
Yeah,
animals, so, like, I get
we
it,
are.
but it's just like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, I'm just like I don't care because the people that desire you for having the certain type of body are usually not great people to begin with.
Yeah.
They usually do have money and are willing to provide because they're like, "Ooh, you look good. This is what I need to like have on my arm."
Mhm.
But a lot of men with money, they know they can do a lot more
Yeah.
than a man without money.
And then y that's
They
how you get stuck with an Instagram poem.
precisely. So yeah, a lot of women are in that similar situation as this woman and they're staying. They're like, I'm getting paid. He's paying my rent. He's paying for my car. He takes me on trips. He buys me all the purses that I want.
Yeah.
And and he gives me an allowance. So I'll put up with it. I need my peace of mind, like at the end of the day.
Yeah.
More than anything, yes, it is so great to have somebody who's like financially stable and able to give you gifts as you desire and like
Yes.
able to help out in whatever ways you want. That's an amazing perk, but it's also like, I don't need to rely on a man for shit. You know what I mean? Like I already got my own shit going, period, point
Yeah.
blank. I'm good with or without you. So that's another thing because men will try to treat you a certain way. I made you without me or nothing. You have nothing. Like,
Oh,
babe, I'm so sorry. That could never be me.
no. No, that's actually really funny. I was just having a conversation with Clay the other day because I was like, "You know what's stressing me out this year?" So I'm freelancing and starting to work for myself. So obviously I'm not making as much money as I used to, which I knew going into it and I'm totally fine with overall. But it's going against everything I have hammered into my head since I was in high school. And I'm like lucky to have had that hammered in my head. Like my mom and my stepmom, like, always were, like, very black and white about it. They were like, "Never depend on a man. Even if you're married, like, make sure that you can afford, like, the rent on your own if you have to, like, da da da." And this year, I'm like, savings-wise and, like, when you look at it overall, I'm not dependent on my husband because if anything were to happen, God forbid, I could still get a job myself. I could still
Hell yeah.
get my own apartment at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But in terms of this year, like day to day, yeah, I'm very dependent on my husband. And it's so uncomfortable to think that when you like have grown up your whole life being like, never, never do that. So that's just interesting overall. It just sucks. I was telling him it's like a catch 22 because I feel like we are in in a type of marriage where it's like totally healthy and supportive, and I'm not really risking that much by relying on him, but like most women in most marriages, it is a huge risk. That advice is still really important, but it is crazy to be on the other side of it and still be like, I don't know how to like be thinking about this in my head.
You're like, "I want to, but my mama did say that." So,
Yeah, I'm like,
but
wait,
yeah.
what the fuck am I doing? And then he's like, it's okay. And then I'm like, is it?
Yeah, but you still have an education. You literally
Yeah.
are doing work right now. If you wanted to, you could easily find
Yeah,
something.
see.
It's just different because back in the day, women usually weren't
That's the
educated.
thing.
They had to stay in the house, take care of the kids, so they didn't have time to work and provide for
Yeah,
themselves if
they
needed.
really had no other options, yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. But it's funny because, like we were just saying, it's the exact opposite here in Miami. I mean, people's parents do want you to get an education and do good, but women are like, "I'm just gonna marry rich. Like, I'm just gonna, like, be with a rich
Yeah.
man and just hinge on that. Like, I'd rather get my body done and make a bet on getting taken care of. Because like, men here will absolutely do that. Like, if
Yeah.
you're what they're looking for, they will happily spend money on
It's
you.
just such a big risk.
Yeah, because 'cause don't you dare try to treat me like shit because you have money.
Exactly. Not only that, but yeah, just, like, not having, like,
Yeah,
options because 'cause you're literally putting your whole life
every
on that.
in a man's hand.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because you see the long list of things that this woman has done for that man, like, from that Instagram post, and he's like, "I left you when you gained weight."
Oh, crazy. Yeah, exactly, like, that's the thing too, you're not only risking your freedom to live life how you want, you're also risking being treated shittily, and then you're also risking, like, being left alone because
Being left alone for whatever, because
yeah,
he found somebody with a better body than you,
exactly.
you know? Maybe he just got bored
Yeah,
and never came back.
I hope I never get Botox. I don't think I would ever get filler. I could see myself, like, years down the line being like, "Maybe I get a little Botox," but at this point, I kinda don't want to. Seeing ourselves on video, honestly, has helped in the long run. I'm like, I like the fact that I'm very expressive. Like, most people aren't. It's just crazy. Like, I hope I always have that. It's
Maintain that.
crazy.
No, yeah,
But
I am
also,
very
side
expressive.
note, speaking of posting ourselves on video, did you notice I had posted a video like a week ago and it was on accident because it was before our last episode came out. So I deleted it. But before I deleted it, I noticed we got our first like hate comment.
I'm crying we did,
It
what was
was
it?
just some guy going, and I forget what the video was even about, but it was a guy literally going, "Crybaby podcast."
I'm done.
Isn't
Fuck
that such a good
yeah!
name for a podcast, though? I was like, "Oh my
Fuck
god, if we
yeah!
ever rebrand, Crybaby podcast is actually
Thank
so
you.
good."
Thank you, I love that. That actually
That's
sounds
actually
fire.
really good. Yeah, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna save that for later."
Saving this very sincere note that you left us.
Crybaby
Appreciate it, pal.
podcast.
Period. That's wild.
And In this episode, we will be talking about violence in many different forms. And the point of this episode is really to interrogate how we think and talk about violence in the US. But we are in no means calling for violence in any way, shape, or form. So don't sue us.
For legal
Don't cancel us. It's a podcast.
information as you will.
And use your brain, please. As we're recording this, it's almost November. So the Charlie Kirk assassination happened over a month ago at this point. But we're going to use that as kind of a starting point because it's definitely highly relevant. But a lot of what we're talking about goes way beyond that. So this is not a podcast episode about Charlie Kirk. But yeah, I feel like that incident definitely made me think a lot because obviously he was assassinated, and then there were immediately all these calls on both sides of the party lines and just from people all over the internet calling for, like, calling against political violence. Even before the shooter was caught, even before any information was out, everyone was like, we cannot have political violence in this country. We need to end political violence. Political violence is never okay. Obviously, yes, I completely agree. But what was interesting is that political violence, by definition, when you search it up, it literally is defined by violence acted by a state, typically. So it was interesting that we were like connecting political violence to like a random shooting that we didn't have any information about yet. He was definitely political, but I do think, like, by definition, we've kind of lost the actual definition of political violence, which is really interesting in this country in particular, because there is a ton of political violence. We're just not talking about it correctly. So after this happened, after Charlie Kirk was shot, there was obviously so much posted online, like TikToks galore. I mean, this is probably the 500,000th podcast episode to exist that's now mentioning him. But I thought it was interesting, and I took a couple screenshots of Facebook posts that I saw. So this one said, every American should condemn and reject acts of violence against those with whom we disagree. That is the exact opposite of what democracy is, and those who resort to violence only threaten our republic and our people's safety. I am praying for Charlie Kirk's family and friends, but also I'm praying for the students harmed in the school shooting today in Colorado. Violence is not the answer. I didn't pull that post out to disagree with it. I honestly agree with everything they said, but I felt like it was a really good example of what a lot of people said around this time. And I just feel we need to go a step further than violence is not the answer, because I think it's important for us to start to come to terms with the fact that we already have sanctioned wide scale violence in the US as a society, which we live with every day. And it goes way beyond assassinations and mass shootings, unfortunately. So, another Facebook post that I want to call out, I very much have a Facebook uncle, like the stereotypical Facebook uncle who's up on there every day posting and reposting just the craziest takes. It's the type of stuff that you can't even argue with. It's like AI videos, rampant misinformation, like, I don't even know. And of course, no one even likes his posts, but he's on there every day like it's his job.
He's like, I'm sharing just in case you want to know, boo boo.
That's what I think. So he reposted from a Facebook page called Conservative Politics Today that said, it's been more than 24 hours since Charlie's murder, and no cities have been set ablaze, and no stores have been looted. We're not the same. So I thought that post was fascinating because shootings happen every year, both on this scale, people shooting individuals and, of course, mass shootings. We have those every single year in the US, and they're actively argued for Not only by the NRA, who is funding and lobbying pro gun laws, but also our own citizens who I'm pretty sure my Facebook uncle has definitely reposted something in the past that says something like guns don't kill people, people kill people. So we obviously have that violence every single day that is actively argued for. Meanwhile, property damage is so condemned, not only condemned from a lot of people like my Facebook uncle, but widely incarcerated. Like, so many people are incarcerated because of private property, not only just damage, but private property intrusion. A post this is just so fascinating to me because it highlights that dichotomy in our country. Like, obviously, this post was put up right the day or two after Charlie Kirk's assassination, where, we have this entire conservative Facebook page condemning property violence that wasn't even happening. Meanwhile, did anyone in our current administration even mention gun violence after that shooting or even in the months that have followed? No.
Mm-mm.
It's interesting to see how a lot of people okay certain violence and condemn other types of violence. So, looking at violence on a broader scale, we live in an inherently violent country. This country has never not known violence, but like this example, some violence is pushed for and even championed, and other violence throughout history has really been sanitized and even moralized in a way that really removes the original intention. So I'll get into that later. But there's this really good article actually that Carla found from an Amherst student newspaper. Shout out to the student. Off the shit I was writing when I was a freshman. I remember I got published in the Alligator a couple times. It was like not anything like this.
Did not compare to Caroline. Okay, Caroline knew what she was doing standing up for that newspaper.
Yeah, she
Okay,
knows
they
what she's
needed her.
doing. So, yeah, Caroline Flynn. I'm going to mention this article honestly a lot because it actually applied to a lot of what I wanted to talk about. But just to start, one of the quotes from her post said, "These slow, normalized forms of coercion profoundly shape American life, but are often ignored in mainstream discourse. Recognizing the full spectrum from overt acts to everyday structural harm offers a more accurate picture of US politics." So obviously she's talking about a lot of different things that I'll actually expand on in a second. This whole article is really talking about the everyday violence that American citizens are subject to that not only do we just live with and have just like decided is normal for us, but that a lot of our politicians and government figures even push for. Some examples of violence that has been permitted in the US, obviously starting from the very beginning, slavery, and then that followed by Jim Crow, police brutality as an extension of that. The police were something created to protect private property that belonged to mostly white people. And as we know, they continue to specifically target Black, brown, and people of color. I pulled a stat that in 2024, police killed 1,364 people in the US, which was the deadliest year to date. Yeah,
I
that's
wanted to
only getting
add
worse.
the premise of the police was that they were the slave patrols. So the existence of police was to catch slaves. So we expanded the police force from that
Mhm.
original need. So that's if that's the basis of the police, obviously it's going to disenfranchise the people that they were meant to catch when they were enslaved.
Yeah, essentially, the police has always been an inherently violent institution. It's only evolved from there. So when we had the Black Lives Matter movement, it wasn't just that moment in time. It was a culmination of decades and decades and this police history of brutality. So then we have incarceration, which within our prison system, there is systemic abuse that is well documented. 2024 actually was also a record high for assaults within prisons, not only on incarcerated individuals, but also assaults on staff. And that's speaking of several states like New York and Alabama. And then, of course, we have the death penalty still in this country, with which a lot of wealthy countries don't even have. You could argue all day. People think it's necessary. Some people don't. I obviously don't, but I do think it's important to recognize that so many other wealthy countries don't even have it. And it is seen broadly as a really archaic, like, solution for crime. And the most violent thing you can do at a systemic level is literally kill your own civilians. Moving forward on my really fun list, ICE, immigration. Obviously, we're seeing so much of this violence every day right now on our phones, even. There's just so much video evidence of people being slammed to the ground, pushed around, like literally brutalized in public with no due process. If anyone wants to argue, well, they're just doing their jobs, let them do their jobs. The people that they are attacking and also grabbing off the streets have not been tried. There's no legal consideration for whether they are supposed to be in this country or not. Not only are we seeing what we're seeing on social media, but this year alone, there have already been 14 or 20 deaths in ICE custody. And there isn't even a consensus on that number when you look it up online, which is highly concerning because it's like we don't even know what that real number is. It could be much higher. There's obviously such a black box in terms of what they're reporting because there's a lot that they don't want us to see. Going back to gun violence, we have mass shootings practically on the daily. Even if it's not making the news, there's people being shot every day. There's also huge amounts of domestic violence in this country that we honestly don't talk a lot about when it comes to gun violence. And that often even is a really big indicator of whether someone is going to enact a mass shooting if they're at home, like enacting violence on their wives or their families. They're more likely to commit a mass shooting. Maternal trauma and mortality, that's actually something that, in my opinion, is a form of violence that we also don't talk about a lot. But this stat is always floating around online, the fact that in the US, maternal mortality remains 2 to 4 times higher than other developed nations. And not only that, but we always hear stories of like traumatic births, especially for Black women and people of color, that literally scary to give birth in the United States, and it doesn't have to be. I actually listened to a podcast episode about the history of giving birth in the United States and how because we were so Puritan, truly like giving birth was like designed to be painful and violent because they believed that that was more godly, that God intended for it to be painful. So if you were in pain and if it was hard, you were doing your God-given duty as a woman. That's what giving birth in America has evolved from, and it's literally violence against women.
The mortality rate for Black women giving birth in America is astonishingly high. I
Yeah.
personally know someone who's passed away after giving birth because clear signs that she was having post-op were not considered whatsoever. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that white doctors or doctors who are not well versed with multicultural patients are not checking up on those patients. So it is act of violence because ignoring the needs of somebody could end in their death.
100%. It's insane. It's shocking to think that that is still the standard with our medical doctors. But yeah, when you look at the history, the culture around giving birth and especially treating women of color is not to understand or to want to care for them. Something else that I think about a lot in terms of giving birth is the fact that the chainsaw was literally invented by Puritan doctors to fucking rip open women as they were giving birth. I mean, that's literally what happens in horror movies. When people make movies of the nastiest violence happening against women, like, that's it. What should be, like, the happiest time of your life, like, it's just insane. Another form of violence that I wanna highlight is military violence, which, of course, we don't have to deal with on a day-to-day basis on our own soil, but There is a documented history of our military enacting violence abroad, stories that we have heard about and that we have not heard about. I mean, there's just so many examples that we as a society just let appear in the news and then brush under the rug, like the Abu Ghraib incident during the Iraq War. This was when members of the US Army were found committing war crimes against prisoners in Iraq. That included physical abuse, sexual humiliation, psychological torture, insane shit that is not sanctioned on an international level. And that honestly, I feel got swept under the rug. There's also really similar horrifying reports of our troops in Palestine over the past several years, making games out of their presence there and the violence that they were enacting against Palestinians. A lot of what we talked about in previous episodes, our military presence in communist countries, in Latin America, in South Asia. I
Middle
mean,
East,
military violence is a huge, yeah, the rest of the Middle
Latin
East.
America, Caribbean,
Yeah,
anywhere.
it's pretty much global. And I do think it's important for us as citizens to recognize that violence because, yeah, if we're going to normalize that as a country of what we can do to other global citizens, of course, our own government is going to be okay with certain ways of treating our own citizens here. It's not going to be to the same extent. We don't have military men out on the streets yet. We do in
Yeah, we
certain
do.
instances.
We
We do in
actually
certain instances. It's not affecting everyone, but yeah, it could very well get to that level.
domestically, military violence is something that's very real. Like within the military, there are tons of reports of violence from military to military members. There's sexual assaults that are not talked about. There's rapes.
Oh,
There's military violence that happens at military bases. There's mass shootings that happen at military bases. Domestic violence that happens a lot with military members as well. We're seeing military members have this reactionary, aggressive reactionary response to what they're experiencing.
the culture definitely breeds, yeah, just violence against other people. And it's like, even though we're not seeing it against all of us as citizens, like you said, it's basically licensed within the military. It's now licensed against many different civilians. And who's to say it's not going to keep happening? And then in the Amherst article, she actually also pulls out some really great examples of violence in this country, like Native communities, obviously, the genocide that we committed. Then to this day, that has also resulted in ongoing displacement, suppression. Indigenous women are some of the highest rates of being missing or murdered even because of a lot of the inherent violence within like that has been enacted on that community and the lack of a lot of resources that causes a lot of crime. Of course, there's so much anti-LGBT violence still in this country. The Pulse nightclub massacre is a really good example. I literally just saw a Instagram reel that Ron DeSantis in Florida is wanting to place Turning Point, the organization, within Florida public schools. And he talked about a lot of crazy shit, but one of it was like removing gay straight alliances, which is a really great example of how we don't want to protect LGBT communities at all in a lot of different states and just throughout our country. So there's a lot of violence that goes unchecked. And then, yeah, along with the gender based violence, there's also attacks on abortion providers. So that's a fun little laundry list of the types of violence that have become very normalized within our country. If you personally don't experience that violence every day, you're like, wait, the US isn't a violent country. I can step out of my home and I'm not attacked. Well, we very much have created this culture where it's like, you very well could, or anyone you know.
You could be
Like,
robbed, shot, mass shooted,
exactly.
like anywhere, any
So,
day.
literally.
Your car,
And,
your
yep,
person, your home.
yep. And it's not that people might also say, well, that's the case in any country. Anything could happen. And it's like, no, not to this extent. Not to the extent where
It's
it's
not
like you literally know someone who died in childbirth. Like In other countries, that is not
Yeah,
normal.
like, I know people who's been shot, like, know
Exactly.
people have been robbed, know people cars have been broken into. Shoot, my car's been broken into, like,
Yeah.
yes, violence is around, close.
Violence is around and it's close.
It's real close.
Mama
Close
is
your door,
coming
lock
up
it.
behind you.
Hide your wife and hide your husband because 'cause they're coming up for everybody out.
No, literally, he was right, though. He wasn't just about that incident. You could say
Literally.
that about the entire country. Now, I really want to talk about violence in this country that is either sanitized or bipartisanly condemned in order to make a more docile civilian. You're going to get into more of that, but I have some examples. One really big one is MLK in the civil rights era. That whole movement was nonviolent, that's true. But the point of it being nonviolent was to essentially leverage violence being done onto them. So when we learn about this movement in school, we really kind of ignore that fact and we remove violence altogether, the strategy. It wasn't we're just gonna do these sit-ins at these lunch counters, at these buses until eventually we will be graciously granted the permission to do so on our terms. It wasn't that. It was, we know this is gonna provoke racist violence that we can then highlight and use to our advantage and show that so I want to pull in another quote from this article called The Story of Violence in America. And the author, Kelly Carter Jackson, talks a lot about how throughout history there is an unfair expectation that white men can employ violence to defend democracy, but Black Americans, people of color, and women should always be nonviolent. And she also pulled in a quote from the former field secretary of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Cynthia Washington, who was active around the civil rights movement. And she even said, I never was a true believer in nonviolence, but was willing to go along with it for the sake of the strategy and goals. The thought of being beaten to death without being able to fight back put the fear of God in me. And she went on to say that she carried a handgun in her bag at all times and was ready to use it, though she never did have to use it at that time. We're taught that Black people, like, garnered this whole movement because they were nonviolent. They didn't fight back. They were peaceful, and that's how we should really be moving forward. That's how progress happens.
They use it to their disadvantage because they were getting beat up and they were
Yeah.
like, we're not going to respond so that we can seem like we're on a morally high ground. And, if we fight back, then they're going to say, oh, you hit us, so we're going to murder you. Right? If you react with violence, then we're going to react basically like how Israel says we're going to react with extraordinary force.
Yep.
So the only way for them to actually do these protests and not get killed and reach the hearts of white Americans was to show
Mhm.
we're willing to stand here and get beat up to say that we deserve equality.
Yeah, essentially holding a mirror up to what was happening to them and making sure that it could finally be shown to the public and that it was showing America what was really happening. Yeah.
So you remember you made that example earlier about how your like Facebook uncle was saying, we're not looting, we're not doing this and that, right? So it's like if black people react in violence towards
Mhm.
anything, it's seen in that light. Like, oh, that's all you do. You're thugs. And of course you're thugs and gangsters. Of course you're just gonna ruin the city. You're gonna ruin these businesses. Meanwhile, they're like Targets and Walmarts. You're
Yeah.
gonna ruin these businesses, and that's so bad. But after football games, literally in the city of Philadelphia is torn to pieces by
Mhm. That's a great example.
fanatics who literally are just excited because they won a game. But
Mhm.
that's completely fine and that's expected because they're white men and they can do
Yep.
whatever they want. Yeah, going back to Carter Jackson's article, the concept of black people reacting with violence is very much looked down upon, and it's racially motivated.
Mhm. Protests and property damage, like you said, are condemned not only from a racial standpoint, but also even it's to keep Black people contained
And
and to control them. It's protest and property damage. And those are very much condemned often along party lines, especially when you look at the Black Lives Matter protests in like 2020 when it was like, this property damage is happening because people are fed up with violence against people. So if you're going to condemn the property violence, but not condemn the violence against people, like where do we go from there? You just want everyone to be docile and to just take it as it is. So it's a really great example. And then the last one that I had added to my list in terms of like historical violence that has been sanitized that I do think we should be looking at more, especially now, is the mass internment during World War II. That also is something when you learn about this in school, it is so glazed over. It's like, yeah, we were like, we rounded up Japanese people and they were just in camps for like a couple months. Like, it's no big deal. But the mass violence that was happening in these camps, honestly, is a direct line to what is happening right now with what ICE is doing. So I do think it's really important to fully understand what this history looked like. There were incredibly poor conditions in these camps, as you can imagine. I mean, the government just like fucking put them up in like what months time. They were like basically shanty towns. There were fatal shootings at these camps from even from just citizens like approaching the fences. I read one story of a Japanese man who was literally walking his dog near one of the fences and got shot in the back of the head by one of the guards. One of the largest camps was the Tule Lake Segregation Center in Northern California, which held 19,000 people in a very heavily militarized camp. And it within this camp, it included this area called the Stockade, which was a zone where like the worst troublemakers were put. They were kept in cells that had no bedding or heat. There were no windows and there was limited toilets and food. So like abysmal conditions even for like war prisoners. And keeping in mind, these are people who were held there, rounded up, held without trial. That's why I say this is so similar to what's happening right now. Like, there was no distinguishing even between like Japanese citizens versus Japanese Americans who were born here. It didn't matter. It was entirely based on how you looked and what language was you were speaking, which is exactly how people are being rounded up now. So, yeah, another really good example and through line of how this violence just happens, it gets swept under the rug, and then it like continues to where the government is emboldened to continue enacting this violence in different ways. And so we're still seeing it to this day.
And you said they held 19,000 people at this encampment, right? Stephen Miller was saying that they fired all of the heads of ICE because they said they weren't arresting enough people. I think they're arresting like 1,000 people a day. And he says he wants them to be arresting 3,000 people a day.
Yeah.
So at this point, their plan is to replace the heads of ICE because they're like they are still trying to follow the law up to somewhat of an extent, the higher ups that is, and so they're replacing them with border patrol who are more ruthless, and that's why they need to like in some cases detain people without asking questions without even
Mhm.
verifying if they're
Yeah.
citizens, and they're getting paid most likely per person. So
Mm.
at 19,000 number, this is not just similar, like this is actually pretty much the same thing. Like there's no
Yeah.
oversight into ICE facilities. We do not know what's happening inside of them. We do know that people are dying, people are sick, and people are not getting access to medical care, food, and there's just quite like there's just so much going on that it's leading to these conditions where people are actively being treated, like you said, like war criminals.
And there's also the fact that a lot of these detention centers that we have now, which are basically the same thing, segregation camps. I mean, same fucking thing. We just call them detention centers now. But so many of them are privately owned, just like our prisons. Not only are they just wanting to up these quotas, it's literally to fund private companies, which then, of course, a lot of our politicians are shareholders of. So
Yeah.
it's lining their
And
pockets.
they're
Ah!
double lining their pockets because these private prisons are also real estate investments. So the
Yeah.
more people, the more value the land brings, basically.
Yeah.
So more
Yeah,
profits.
it's insane. It's insane, it's insane. It's always going back to capitalism, but yeah, a lot of this violence that we just have in our everyday societies, ultimately, it does go back to, like, it's for people to profit. Yeah. It's for certain populations to profit, and yeah, one of the things that I wrote down in my notes to close on is just the fact that we have always in the US have this oppressor-oppressee dynamic, and the oppressees have rarely met violence with violence because of everything we said. A lot of the control tactics, a lot of the ways that we're taught about violence as we are in school. But then when there is protests and property violence, it's really sanitized to emphasize the importance of nonviolence. Another quote, this is from the Amherst article again, and she said, "The US was born from political violence, not persuasion. The revolution involved militias fighting redcoats, mobs attacking officials, and loyalists being harassed or killed. Violence was essential to independence, not incidental." And with all the examples that we touched on, you can see that throughout history. So, what I want to close on is again saying I do not condone violence against people. But a pacifist only moral policing stance is not realistic, nor is it an accurate depiction of how societies, not only our society, but other societies have progressed throughout history. And yeah, I just feel like American society, it's like we've taken thoughts and prayers way too far. I know a lot of us like to make fun of that when we see it on social media after mass shooting, but like even the most well-intentioned people who don't want to see mass shootings, I think we're not really understanding what we do enable on a day-to-day basis. I think that American democracy has its limits essentially because it's designed to have limits. And we truly have a long way to go in order to reach a true democratic nation. I mean, it's like what we were talking about too. American capitalism is so entrenched that it influences so much of our democracy. That's like a whole different episode. But a lot of people think still that we are the gold standard of democracy, but it's just not true because when corporate interests are determining so much of what our democracy looks like, that's not true democracy. That's oligarchs. People are actively pushing against all of this from a policy standpoint, and we should continue to promote that and have these conversations, organize and exercise the democracy we have to its full extent, 100%. I hate seeing people who are like, we shouldn't even vote because it's not worth it. Because it's like we need to use the tools we have to its fullest extent while we can. But at the same time, it is realistic to consider like other options we have as a collective and not shy away from these conversations. Like violence doesn't always have to mean violence against people. It can also mean just like force, like collective force. I like a good example is the fact that I think union membership in the US is like the all-time lowest it's ever been. And that includes like striking and boycotting. Like we don't really have those mass movements like we did like 100 years ago. And those are really great examples of how instead of just thoughts and prayers and preaching nonviolence again and again, it's like, how can we as a collective use that power as a force to turn the tables and not like shy away from conversations like that? And
Yeah.
especially looking at so many other countries, both wealthy and non wealthy, and the fact that a lot of populations, especially this year, have risen up against really corrupt governments and pushed for collective change that they want to see, like France, Indonesia, Nepal. I know you're going to talk about this a lot more. But yeah, in many of these situations, they are using collective force. They are also using forms of property violence, which is very taboo in this country. But I do think it's something that is worth having a conversation about. I'm not saying let's all get out and start destroying our communities. That's not what I'm saying at all. But like strategically, what does that look like? And why is it so successful in these other countries?
Amen. Amen. Get that. So when we were talking about doing this episode, the first thing that immediately crossed my mind was something that Claire said earlier was that well, the US is not really that violent. And then I'm like, okay, just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Like, there's so many instances of violence that it's just become normal. You see a mass shooting and you're like, oh, you don't even flinch anymore. It's something
Yeah.
it comes across your screen and you're just like, oh my gosh, and again. And it's just so many things that happen that, like you said, it just becomes nothing to us
Mhm.
anymore. Another thing that came to mind was that historically, like you said, violence has been inherent within American society from the government, but also Americans have been very violent historically, and they've used violence to protest mistreatment. This concept of nonviolence is something that's very new, and I think because Americans we've never had a war in the United States. We
Mhm.
haven't had typically had our military, act in violent ways against us. So in those instances, we're thinking, we don't have a really violent society, but like you pointed out, there's so much violence that's just ingrained, and it's so ingrained that we don't even notice it anymore. But I wanted to point to this quote by Richard Gibson, and I pulled from his article that he wrote for Prindle Institute. The article was titled, "Is Violent Protest Ever Justified?" This is a really good quote that talks about how the West sees violence. Violence is typically seen as antithetical to the liberal democratic process, so often associated with developed nations. In such nations, we're not meant to solve our problems with force and intimidation, but with words and impassioned speeches, thoughts, and
Thoughts and
right.
prayers.
If one wants to change a political system or draw attention to a systematic injustice, we're not meant to smash up shops or set fire to cars, but to call upon our elected officials to enact changes or go to the media so they can spotlight the wrongdoing. And the rhetoric that we've seen post Charlie Kirk being assassinated is, political violence is inherently wrong, right? We're not
Mhm.
supposed to have this. This is something that has no place in our society and it should go away. But the question of this article is, are civilians always in the wrong to violently act against the state? The rhetoric surrounding Charlie Kirk's death is that when people disagree, when there's an issue, the reaction should be discussion and reason, not
Mhm.
violence. Okay, you're supposed to compromise and be insightful. Somebody has to be the bigger person, and we should solve our ideas in a civilized manner and not in a brutish gangster thuggish way that we civilized people don't act. The article says that in a perfect world, this would be the case. The case would be we could just talk it out. And
Mhm.
like in the perfect world, there would never be political violence. That would be a concept of the past, because obviously the world's perfect. But since we don't live in a perfect world and wherever you live in the world, political coercion and injustice are things that are always going to happen, and that's just a part of a government being a government. Okay, this is some of the examples that he points to. These shootings, there's not really a response to it other than thoughts and prayers, really. Financial
Mhm.
mismanagement and draconian laws that could take away your rights, and also just more surveillance, like what we're seeing right now in the US, but like we're seeing elsewhere throughout the world. Surveillance is increasing and they're taking more power away from civilians. The state is always trying to increase its power, and it's often in language of protecting citizens and the citizens' interests. A good example of this is the war on drugs. So,
Yeah.
the war on drugs was a tool to say to the citizens, US citizens, that, hey, our crime ridden streets are crime ridden because of drugs. And to stop the drugs and to stop the drug use, we're not going to figure out why the hell people are using drugs and like help them get off of it. We're going to go to where they create the drugs and kill all of those people and just keep killing them and bombing them and spending all of our money doing that. And obviously, there was an entire purpose behind the war on drugs, which had nothing to do
Mhm.
with protecting anybody in the United States. Because if that was the case, then obviously the war on drugs would have been the war on poverty and the war on mental illness and the war on whatever situations and circumstances that led people to even do the drugs in the first place. So
Yeah.
I just find it ironic. And this article really points out like the way that the state coerces you to increase its power in the name of American people or, its population, saying that we're going to help you, we're going to save you, but we need money to do that. So in order for us to go ahead and help you, we need more money, and we're gonna do whatever we need to do on the sidelines. But at the end of the day, this is to protect you. When in reality, people are so much more addicted to drugs now than ever
Mhm.
before.
Not only that, but wasn't that the single point where we can see mass incarceration shoot up? It's like not only was it not beneficial for people with addiction, but it literally licensed entire populations of our country to be locked up for
I mean, yeah,
life.
That was the intention. That was the
Yeah.
intention. And this is like beside the point, but like, that's why when white people say like, Reagan was my favorite president, I'm like, I completely
Yeah,
understand that
that's cr
because Ronald Reagan made everything great for white people.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
He
true.
fulfilled his promise to white people. So in white people's eyes, of course, he's going to be the best president.
Mm. Yeah.
He delivered his promise to white people. For every other community, he destroyed it. But that is to the benefit of white people at the end of the day. So
Got rid of, like, literally all black people.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah, yeah. He ruined it all. That could be a whole other fucking episode.
Yeah,
But
it should
I got
be.
too much to say on that. So the question is, what do you do? What do you do in a society when the state oversteps the mark in terms of its power and legitimacy as a state? What do you do as a citizen when the people in power are not listening to what you have to say? They're not listening to your vote. They're not listening to the laws. They're not obeying you as a citizen of the country, of the democracy. They require your obedience. They require you to do what they say and to not revolt, right? That's the requirement. If I'm taking more and more and more and you're having less and less and less, the requirement here for me to take more is that you're obedient and that you accept that I take more. The
Yep.
more that the more that you would resist, the less that I could possibly take because I see that's not happening. The state needs you to play by the rules. It needs you to be obedient for this to work. And it actually requires to want to do so, to want to be obedient. It coerces you to be obedient. To not be obedient would be the same as you being a gangster or a thug or somebody who is an undesirable. So if it does not coerce people to stay in the state of obedience, then you have violent protests. This is when the disobedient emerges. This is when it could be a small minor infraction. It could be as violent as the mass shooting that happened at an ICE facility, or it could lead to a violent revolution. Those are all acts of disobedience that you can see coming out against the coercion from the state. Richard Gibson points out in this article, which is a really great article, by the way, whenever we see a country getting freed or they won a revolution and they got rid of a horrible leader, everyone is always cheering them on. And they're like, oh my God, that is so amazing that this country is now free from this horrible
Mhm.
leader. And, you know, that they've had this revolution and now they can start over. And so what we also don't think about, the entire revolution is extremely violent. That is all violence. It's not a
Yep.
happy holding hands process. It's a fight. It's a process where people are getting guns and doing crazy things with them. Okay. One thing is that we also have to consider is that illegitimate political systems and state actors that are nefarious in nature, they do not ever just willingly give up power. Okay. It
Of
has to be
course.
taken away from them. It has to be pried from their hands. And that's specifically what Richard Gibson said. And he motherfucking ate with that. Okay. Period. Also, we just feel like this could never happen here. There could never be a situation where our government does not, you know, protect its citizens or our government would act against us, our citizens. And so it's kind of like a denial phase. And I've seen so many people be in denial for so long saying this is not the case, you know, like that's so far from the truth. And then realizing this is really what's happening, what we're witnessing right now in the United States and also throughout different countries in the West. This is kind of things that we've never seen before, and it's very not normal from the history of our country. So, some of the statistics just around political violence that I just wanted to share post Charlie Kirk's assassination, 30% of Americans say that people might have to resort to violence in order to get the country back on track. So the largest increase in shift of mindset has been among Democrats. So that now makes up 28% of the Democrats who believe the same thing, which is up 16 points. Another interesting point there is that Generation Z is also one of the biggest groups supporting political violence or justifying political violence. So it's really interesting, especially when you consider some of the international protests that have led to revolutions of countries that have been led by Gen Z populations. And
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And so, in terms of people who believe that political violence is a major problem, this is something that is pretty big across the board. 72% of Democrats and 80% of independents agree that political violence is a huge issue. And what we've seen so far is that political violence is something that has increased. Like instead, when I say political violence in terms of the new concept of it, it's really these are incidents of threats and harassments against local officials or just any political official or anyone who's involved within the political process. There's a study that noticed that there's been a 74% increase since 2022.
I'm curious, what is your take from the statistics that you just read? More people are saying that they may have to resort to violence, but then 72% of people who say political violence is a major problem.
For less than 15% of our population earlier in the year believed that political violence was necessary to get our country back. From 15% to 30%.
Doubled.
Yeah. In less than a year, I think that tells you a lot. It's a very big deal, and especially Gen Z saying, I
Mhm.
kind of do support political violence. It's really saying people are extremely worried about the course this country's taking. And it's so funny because I was reading this article at one point, and I don't remember exactly which article this was, but it was talking about the way that our executive branch works is that the president has to have goodwill. Like the entire basis of our democracy is that all the branches have goodwill. So it's just inherent that morally you are to do your job without overstepping or taking advantage, right? And so because we rely on that goodwill, Americans never thought, wow, somebody could want our democracy to end, right?
Right.
Somebody malicious could become the president. Larger share of people are realizing that the president isn't acting out of goodwill. So people really believe that the country's so off track. 30% of people believe it would have to take violence to get the country back to normal. Yeah. And so yeah, so even as that statistic has grown, it just shows you
Yeah.
level of belief and how coerced we have been to really keep that same mindset. It's like we're not supposed to have that. It's interesting that the younger generation is like, yeah, we can't have this. And the older generation is more conservative and being like,
Oh.
no, we're not supposed to rock the boat like that. That's absolutely taboo. We've also seen a large increase in political violence. Princeton University's Bridging Divide initiative recorded a 674% increase in incidents of threats and harassments against local officials from 2022. Luigi Mangione and the murder of Brian Thompson, and Luigi becoming a folk hero really for a lot of people because he's kind of seen as a Robin Hood almost of
Mhm.
taking out the an executive, a CEO, because of all of the horrible things that the health insurance industry has been doing to civilians. And so this is a really big point between the right and the left, where the left does support Luigi and the right doesn't. And the right is like, this is political violence. This is violence against an innocent person that didn't deserve it. Whereas the left sees this as a justified way of reacting towards someone who was completely benefited from the system that basically kills people or acts
Yeah.
in violence towards people in different ways, right? Because like we've mentioned, violence is something that could be used in a medical way, and it could be used like so many different ways. So I'm gonna pull from a quote, and I don't know this person's name, so I'm so sorry to this man. Today's political landscape is intensely polarized and fueled by anger, distrust, and conspiracy theories. It's easier to
Yeah.
target your political opponents for violence if you see them as enemies of the nation. It's actually so interesting because I made this TikTok post about this article that I wrote on Russia and how Russia helped polarize Americans to the point where we are today, where it's like everybody kind of hates each other. There's lots of research being done about the polarization of American people and use of social media and the internet to pit Americans against each other, right? The left and the right, everybody hates each other. Rachel Kleinfeld, who's a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for Peace, did some studies and found that American voters are actually less ideologically polarized than the rhetoric that they consume would suggest. And there's even more research that points to the fact that less than half of American people feel comfortable publicly talking about their political views, and more than half of the public says that they almost never have a political discussion with someone who has a different point of view. And a lot of them actually say that they've never had an interaction online with anybody who like has a different view. Statistics are only 1 in 10 have held political conversations with different people.
Wow.
That just goes to show that we're not talking about this shit, right?
Yeah.
I wrote this article. I basically like, hey guys, we know that a foreign nation used our data and our information to coerce us to not fuck with each other. Like we all know that. We're fucking intelligent as hell. We're educated. We're liberal, we're open minded. But when it comes to being open minded about people who live in our country, that's suddenly when we're like, nope, no, you voted for
Mhm.
Trump. Fuck you. No, no, you're a dumb bitch. Like, you don't know how to read. No, 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 no. And so
Uh,
on my post, I was basically like, hey, like, if we know this information and we're intelligent enough to realize that we've all been pit against one another.
I was like, I don't
So we have like basically a majority of American people cannot comprehend words, reading, okay, past the sixth grade level, which means they can't comprehend any of the policies that Trump was even talking about. Actually, sorry, he did never talks about policies. He just
yeah.
talks shit. Okay, he talks shit, and people love when they talk shit. Did 90% of Trump voters realize what he was gonna do? So I think what's really interesting about these statistics is shows that you guys are all hiding behind a freaking app. Okay. A lot of the times you're interacting with bots. You're not even interacting with real people. You're basing your opinion and your hatred for other people based off of the internet. And that's exactly what they're doing. So it's just really interesting how we're not talking about this and like we're thinking like, oh my God, we're so ideologically against everything you believe in when in reality, the differences that we do have are probably very slim, you know?
Right. And so are you saying there's like growing sentiment that violence is okay, but it feels like ultimately that's because we're being pitted against each other and it's not necessarily people realizing like how state sanctioned violence is being enacted against us. I mean, it's like what we saw with the fucking coup d'etat. It's like that kind of violence is okay because Biden is so left and he's trying to take over the country, like, that's the violence that we're talking about.
Yeah. I think yes, yes, and no. The all of the information that we consume and all of the propaganda that's shoveled out into our brains and our minds just continues to separate us. Like the entire point is to separate us. And just
Mhm.
like you said, like with the coup d'etat attempt, that type of violence was sanctioned. And but then with the murder of Charlie Kirk, you know, Trump was so quick to say, "It's the left. It's the left. The left is
Mhm.
something," and they were trying so hard. It was like even like
Right.
people on the right were like, "What the like? You're trying so hard to push this narrative of like this is political violence. This is the left against the right. The left hates us. The left hates us." It's like a panic, right? It's just not true. It's the person
Yeah.
who did what he did wasn't even a leftist. You know what I mean? It all ties together, and I think it just adds on to the concept. I'm like, sorry to the people who don't know what the hell I'm talking about because you're gonna have to watch my TikTok and read my article. That
Duh.
specifically talks about all the details.
Shameless self-promo.
Just saying. Just saying. So going back to what you were talking about, Claire, before about violence and violence that's sanctioned and the violence that we see as okay. I was going through Reddit and I saw a super interesting thread about violence. And these are tons of people who are commenting, people who are not American, people who are American. And I just wanted to share some of the comments. So one of the persons in the thread says, I moved to the US as a teenager, and one thing that still jars me is how normalized and even celebrated violence is here, especially around acts of self defense. It's common
Mm.
to hear people say they kill to protect their home or family, and they say it without hesitation. Back home, my friends are very similar to my American friends in politics and general life outlook, but most would rather be robbed than live with the trauma of killing someone. In cultures that have lived through war, political violence, or organized crime, violence is often seen as something deeply painful. I feel it carries a deep emotional, cultural, almost even a religious weight. But in the US, violence often feels like it's viewed as a tool, like a solution without much long term thought. I wonder if this comes from the fact that America hasn't experienced full scale war on its own soil in recent history. Without mass suffering from external violence, the country seems emotionally distanced from what violence really does to people on an individual and societal level.
Mm. Wow.
That's interesting because of the concept of self defense. That's something that's so inherently American of like, you come here,
Mhm.
I'm gonna shoot you.
Especially like Florida, the stand your ground laws. Yeah.
Yes, the concept of self defense is very strong here. And that's something that we, as Americans, we don't think about quite enough or
I think
even
it goes back to like American individualism because yeah, it's like what I was saying too and what this person is saying on Reddit. It doesn't affect us individually on a day-to-day basis right now. And our American life still is so comfortable for a lot of people that we don't realize how broad violence is because it's not at that scale.
It's not like in our day-to-day lives that we're like, "What
Yeah.
violence?" Right? But so many people, that's not the case. Like, they experience so much violence on a day-to-day basis. And so someone else on the Reddit responded to that and said, I'm not sure if it's a cultural detachment from violence so much as how we perceive and think about violence. America is incredibly individualistic. So, in almost every aspect of our society, we're taught to protect and value
Mhm.
ourselves before others. And that's a large reason why the Second Amendment is constantly referenced and so protected. Everyone puts
Yeah.
their rights and safety first before thinking about the safety of our people,
Mhm.
which is exactly what I'm talking about. We have to think about the safety of our people.
Yeah.
America, people want the right to own guns to protect themselves despite our raging problem with schools and mass shootings. We also grew up on superhero vigilante TV shows and movies that glamorize violence as a means for justice and accountability. And we're also a country built on using violence for power and
Mhm.
control. So, using violence as a tool is something that's really ingrained within American culture, especially because we're so individualistic. And that means it's a
Mhm.
tool we're taught to use on each other.
They ate with
Period,
that.
poo.
Damn, this
Yeah,
is a good
no.
conversation. Let's have them on the podcast.
Right? Exactly, like, "Come
Reddit
on here.
user,
We need to talk to you. I don't know your name, but if you're saying this, let's talk."
email us.
Literally. And that's literally exactly what you just said, Claire. It's always about me. It's always about my individual body, my individual family, and I'm gonna protect them, and it has nothing to do with me, the fact that there's school and mass shootings, because I'm a good guy and those are bad guys. If
Right.
I'm a good guy there and there's bad guys, I'm gonna take away the bad guys. So, like, everybody should be a good guy and have guns. But it's like, just like we said with the goodwill, that's not inherent. Okay,
Yep.
we believe that to be inherent, but it's not inherent. So, as we're seeing, something got to be done. Okay, about the bad guys with the guns. Just saying. Okay, so last Reddit response. So this other Redditor said, every state uses violence as a tool to expand or maintain its power and control. The distinguishing feature of the state as opposed to other organizations is that the state's monopoly on the legitimate use of violence. The legitimate uses of violence, it's saying like, oh, we can beat up migrants, we can beat
Mhm.
up illegal people because people can be illegal somehow. We can beat up migrants. We can drag them out. We can drag their children out because it's legitimate uses of violence because they deserved it because they didn't follow the law. That's the rhetoric
Right.
that's being spread. So, and it's funny because someone else is saying everyone always talks about the US specifically being a really violent place when in the fact European powers are have that same history of where they had wars,
For sure.
genocides, violent oppressions. This is something that's really common just throughout the world. And so this person saying in defense of the US, there's things that happen internationally that make the US's obsession with self-defense look like child's play. But the difference that exists is that right to bear arms,
Yeah.
really the right to bear arms is not just to shoot. It was really created for people in colonial America who were like, we've just survived a revolution. We want guns so that when the government tries to encroach on us,
Right.
we're gonna defend ourselves, and we're gonna defend, our country. Going back to the article that you referenced, Claire, from Kelly Carter Jackson. The title of the article is "Violence is Ingrained in American Society." I love this article. First of all, it's more than an article; it's actually like an entire essay, and it's all about how violence is used against Black people and it's justified, right? It's legitimized, but and how it's just been used historically and how it's become normal, right? We talk about violence in our school courses. We're talking about the conquest of people to bring them to slavery, to the Civil War, then the Civil War from World War I to World War II. But when we're talking about civil rights, we're like, oh, okay, it was a nonviolent movement. When in reality, these people were experiencing violence in every end. So it's really crazy because it's like our entire country was founded off of violence. The entire fight for independence, violence was literally the call to action. It was live free or die. Give
Mhm.
me liberty or give me death. He who would want to be free who must strike the blow. Force and violence have been weapons to defend liberty from the basis of our country. So you mentioned the civil rights movement, how it was a nonviolent, moral thing. And that's kind of what scholars reference it as. it was a nonviolent moral endeavor. You know, in reality, the amount of violence that was entrenched in that movement was
Yeah.
huge. And then on the other hand, you have the sentiment of, okay, we have stories like the Underground Railroad where they escaped and it's so heroic and wow, like she brought so many people to freedom. And it's like, do you realize the way that they were able to escape sometimes required fighting, required violence,
Mhm.
required, weapons. So in order for them to gain their liberty, they had to defend themselves.
When we're taught about that, like, I always think of the pictures that come to our minds of the Underground Railroad is them with their lanterns at night sneaking off, and sure, that's one piece of it, but at the same time, there were all these slave revolts happening. They were coming together to go against their torturers. That is very strategic that we're taught that only the image of them cloaked in darkness, silent, not combating anyone.
Yep. And then you had this whole nonviolent movement, and we supported that, and that was great. And then you had the Panther Party, you had Black abolitionist leaders who were like, violence is the only way out of this. Let's arm people. Let's get guns. Black people need to be militant. So Black abolitionist leaders had huge public speeches that were arousing the public. They had a huge Black press. They made militia groups. They mobilized their communities and they compelled national action and drew international attention. They use violence as a political language and as a means of provoking social change. And through
Mhm.
tactical violence, these leaders accomplished what white nonviolent abolitionists could not. One thing that we can know for sure within American history is that violence has been used against American people and violence has been used by the American people
Mhm.
to achieve the results that they want.